All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got a question, go ahead and post them. It's either going to be below the video if you're on a mobile device. If you're on a laptop, desktop computer, it's going to be to the right of the video. I always start with questions that were asked up to an hour before. I'm going to be starting with Mike S. talking about pulling the ball to the left. Looks like we have one question after that. So if you got a question, go ahead and get it posted on there. If not, I will go back to questions that were asked. Looks like there were some that were asked last night. And I can go back to those. But Chris, if you're on here, Mario P, Timothy D. So these are all questions that were posted yesterday after office hours ended. So obviously we weren't able to get to those. And I always start with ones that were asked up to an hour before because I can safely assume that those people are going to be here. So so I give precedence to the people that are here actually seeing their questions get answered live. So go ahead and get on there and post your questions. Let's see here. It's acting like my audio is not working. Let me know if you all can't hear me, because the microphone thing isn't going up and down for some reason. Hopefully it's working. So yeah, let me know if you can't hear me, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, cool. Thanks, John. Loud and clear. Awesome. All right, thank you, everybody. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. So usually it's got a little thing that when I'm talking, it'll go up and down, but it's not doing that. So anyway, so Mike S says, pulling the ball left off the tee, have a good setup, ball inside the left foot, right toe pointed slightly out with club head aimed at target. So basically what we have to understand is what causes a pull. A pull is caused by the face being closed at impact. So if I use this, I'll use this because this doesn't stick to the driver face very well. But it's the same difference whether you're hitting a driver or not. So a pull is caused by the face being closed at impact. So if the electrical outlet here is the target, right? And that face is closed, and my path is also kind of in that same direction to the left, that's going to cause a pull. So what's likely going on is you're likely swinging out to in, probably a little over the top, with a closed face, or with your face lined up with your path. So that's the good part. The good part is that your face is lined up to the path. So really what you need to do is you need to feel like you're more swinging more in to out, more from the inside. And that could be with your spine angle, getting your spine. You could be too vertical with your spine. If you get more angled away, it's a lot easier to swing in to out. So I look at your swing on video, try to get more angled away. It could be your right elbow comes out away from your body to start the swing. You want to get that elbow working more into the body. Feel like your trail elbow is going underneath your lead elbow to get the club to work from the inside. So there's all kinds of things that could be going on there, but the main thing here is that you're swinging left with the face pointed in the same direction. So what you need to do is you need to feel like you're swinging to the right with the face pointing in the same direction. And that's going to come from getting more angled away and or feeling like you're shallowing out the club, getting this club to work a lot from the inside. I just try to overdo it. I try to hit some big old blocks out to the right. And what will likely happen is you'll hit the ball straighter instead of getting those pulls. Excuse me. All right, so next question here. So John N says, hello Q, I'm using the 5 steps of the Tatsuki Golf successfully. However, I am setting up at impact possession, left hand facing the target and right hand turned under with straight left arm, extended wrist, and swing on plane. Tilt the Ferris wheel rather than vertical to plane. Swing vertical and flatten square the club face down, same distance, but better consistency in scores. Thoughts? You do you. I mean, there's a lot of ways to swing the golf club. If you're having great success with the way that you're swinging the golf club, who am I to tell you that it's wrong, right? So really, the main things are the 5 pieces of the system, right? So you're probably nailing the 5 pieces of the system most likely. So if you're hitting the ball great, and even if you're not, you're probably pretty close on a lot of them. But yeah, I would just focus on the pieces of the system and get those working correctly. You can have a more vertical swing and swing more vertically. That's completely fine. Let's see here. Let's go see if we got more questions. All right, so no more questions after John here. So if you got your questions, go ahead and post them on there. In the meantime, I'll go back, and we had some questions that were posted last night, and I'll go take a look at those. So Chris H says, this is a long-winded one, so we might actually skip that one. Mario P says, the bunkers at my club were recently redone, and now the sand is deep and fluffy. How do I approach this type of bunker shot? You approach it just like any of the bunker videos that we talk about online. So basically, here's how I would always basically hit a bunker shot. This is more so even in fluffy sand. You might even hit a little bit more behind the golf ball when you're in fluffy sand. But anyway, get a little bit wider of a stance. This will give you a little bit better of a base. That's the reason. And it also helps you to come in a little bit more shallow, helps the hands get lower. So a little bit wider stance. The ball is going to be played somewhere it's going to be pretty forward, somewhere off the inside of your foot here. You're going to have the shaft basically straight up and down. And the reason why we want to do that is that exposes this bounce. We want to expose the bounce on the club. So for those of you who are unaware, the bounce is this little, on a wedge, is that little flange that's on the bottom of the club there. If we have this shaft more vertical versus more down like that, it's going to expose that more. The reason why we want to do that is we want this club to glide through the sand. If we get that leading edge in there, especially in fluffy sand, that club is going to dig down into the sand. It's going to get lost in the sand. So we want to expose that bounce. So we do that by 1, having the shaft more vertical, and 2, opening the face. So opening the face with the shaft more vertical, that exposes more of the bounce. So we want to open that face about 45 degrees. Have that shaft vertical, have a nice wide stance here. And you want to get that face pointing up to the sky. If I put this on here again, you can see that my club face is going to be basically pointing straight up to the sky just about when I do that, right? So it's just about pointing up to the sky. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to hit this sand about 4 to 6 inches behind the golf ball. Let the club slide underneath the golf ball, and I want to feel like the sand, like I'm hitting the sand, and the sand is throwing the ball onto the green. That's what I want to feel like. So, and when you do this, you want to swing hard. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see. The 2 biggest mistakes I see is people who don't open the face, open up this face about 45 degrees, get it pointing up to the sky. And the other mistake I see, people just don't swing hard enough. And it's very understandable because we're not that far away, right? You might be 10 yards away, 20 yards away from the hole. And people, they just take these little swings like this, like they'd be hitting a shot out of the grass. And that's just not going to work out of the sand. Remember, you're not really hitting the ball. Well, you are, but you're hitting the sand and then you're hitting the ball. You need to hit the sand hard enough for the sand to throw the ball out. So it just takes some practice. But open up that face, get that shaft vertical, get a nice wide stance, play the ball forward, take a nice hard swing, really come down and pop that sand behind the golf ball. Really come down, pop that sand behind the golf ball, and let that club slide underneath the ball and let it pop up out of there. Go and practice that, and it just takes some practice, and you'll get good with it. And a lot of people ask me, how do you control distance? You control distance with speed, and you control distance with the loft of the face. So if obviously we're not swinging as hard as we possibly can on every shot, but you need to swing harder than what you think. If it's a 10-yard shot, it might look something like this, where I'm bringing the club up here and I'm swinging through. If it's a 20-yard bunker shot, it may look more like this, where I'm swinging a little bit higher. If it's a 30-yard bunker shot, it may be a full-on swing, basically swinging as hard as you can to get out there. If I need to hit it a little bit further than that, I might open the face a little less, or I might actually club up. You know, if you use a 60 degree out of the sand, you might use a 56 or a 54 degree out of the sand to hit it a little bit further. You know, those clubs have the bounce on them too. So that's how you continue to hit further. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you can't play a bunker blast shot, and you've got to play it almost like a fairway type shot. But for the most part, you can do bunker blasts from a pretty long distance. I try to do bunker blast up to an 80 yards is about as far as I can go with it. After that, you got to typically play it like a fairway shot. All right. So we got some questions here from some people that are here. All right. So Tim Q says, "Hi Q, following my question last week about improving early extension, I was saying that with my arms across my chest, I could get my hips nicely open at impact, but with the club in my hand, hips were pretty much square to the target. Hence, early extension. You suggested that I felt that I could leave my hands and arms up there during the downswing and feel like it was going to take forever to get them to the ball and try to hit the ball without hands and arms at all feeling. I tried this last week and it worked really well. I shot one over gross on the front nine, 11 handicapper. Awesome. So great progress. Any more thoughts on this to improve further? I would just try to go faster and faster and faster with it. That's all I would try to do. Just try to improve on that. You know, it's not literally what's happening. You know, you're not bringing the club up here and then it's all hips that's bringing in. That's not literally what's happening. You would have a hard time getting it to the ball, but you need to continue to feel like that until you actually overdo it. Right. So it's really, I wouldn't try to make it more complicated. I just keep doing what you're doing. And there's really nothing more to say. It's just a matter of getting more repetition in it with it and getting better and better and better and making it second nature. You got to go through the levels of learning. I've talked about this quite a bit in office hours, but basically what you got to do is you got to go from unconscious incompetence, is where you're doing it wrong and you're unaware of it. Then you got to go to conscious incompetence, which is where you were last week, right? Where you figured out, oh man, I have early extension. That's wrong, but I don't know how to fix that. And now you're in the stage where you have conscious competence, where you have to think about this feeling and you're able to do it. At least seems like you're able to do it. You know, you got to confirm that on camera and stuff like that. But you're getting better results. You're getting better with it. Now you're going to be in this conscious competence stage for quite a while. It takes a lot of repetition. If you imagine, you know, learning how to type, learning to play a musical instrument, you know, you don't get to where something is automatic without a lot of hard work and repetition in time. So that's basically just what you got to do, is you got to put the hard work in, the repetition, the time, and then you'll eventually get to the fourth stage of learning, which is unconscious competence. This is where you don't even have to think about it. It's automatic. You're doing it. It would feel weird to do it the other way. It would feel weird to you to early extend. It would feel wrong, right? That's where you want to get to. So it just takes some time and repetition. Keep working through the reps, and you'll get better and better with it. So James H says, swinging inside out to straighten my driver, but I'm hooking my irons from the same swing. So you're probably swinging too much into out. So the thing is, with the driver's further up in the stance, right? So if we're contacting the ball up here, this club is able to work back a little bit, right? And you're probably swinging into out with that same kind of swing here. But by the time the club gets to the golf ball, you're not swinging into out, right? You're swinging probably on plane. You're swinging with a club path that's probably around zero. But with irons, the ball is further back in your stance, so the club is probably working too much into out when you're doing that. And or you may be swinging more into out with the irons. Either way, you need to feel differently with the irons if that is the case. You need to feel like you're not swinging so much from the inside. You need to feel like you're rotating and bringing this club over the top. That's the feel that you want to have. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, but we have to adjust our feel to get the desired result that we want. We're not going to be able to you may not be able to use the exact same swing with everything because you're not hitting everything the exact same way. You need to make certain adjustments. So like I said, with the driver, you're hitting up on the golf ball, right? Or you're not hitting the ground, right? You're letting the club bottom out and then work up into the golf ball. It can work down into the golf ball. That's fine too, a little bit. We don't want too much, obviously. But that ball is further up in your stance, so you're hitting it at a different point in your swing. So with the iron, you're hitting it back here. So you have to make an adjustment for that. One thing you can do with the irons is that to take a relatively similar swing is to open your stance a little bit. That will get you to where you're swinging more. You can kind of feel like you're taking that same swing, but then with the open stance, it can help you to get that club more on plane. So that's an adjustment that you can make. Either that, or you just need to feel like you're swinging less from the inside. You need to feel like you're rotating more and swinging over the top. Everything, you're not going to be able to do the same exact thing for all the clubs necessarily. Now, you may feel like you can, and that would be completely fine, but you're not always going to be able to do that. You're going to need to make adjustments based on, if you're not getting the results that you want with a certain club or certain clubs, you have to make adjustments based on that. There could be reasons why you're not, it's a different club, it's a different shaft, it's a longer club. We do different things. Our body may react differently to the way that the club is set up. You may have a different feeling of the way that you need to square the face with the iron versus the driver, because the head shape's a lot different. So there's lots of things that be going on there. But either way, we know the physics of what's going on. We know that the face is close to the path, so you're hooking it. So you need to feel like the face is open to the path. Feel like you're hitting a cut with those irons. All right, so keep the questions coming, and we'll scroll down again, see if we got any questions. All right, so Timothy D says, stable fluid spine 1.5 test reps. Should I do the correct, then forward, incorrect, then exaggerated tilt in that order 1,000 times? It doesn't really matter which order you go in. You just want to alternate between them. And yeah, you'll do it 1,000 times. You want to do at least 1,000 reps. Really, the 1,000 reps, it's like what I was talking about earlier, going through the stages of learning. The 1,000 reps is just what we found, or the 1,000 to 3,000 reps, based on what it is. It's just what we found. That's where most people, that's the amount of reps it takes most people to get through that stage of learning, right? To get through to that conscious competence into the unconscious competence. But that doesn't mean that that's necessarily what it's going to be for you. It just means that's what we found with most people. So for you, it might take 500 reps. And for you, it might take 10,000 reps. It just depends. You do it until it becomes automatic, to where you're doing it. You don't even have to think about it. It's automatic. And that's where you want to get to. That's the whole point of doing all the reps. So we'll answer this one from James D. Says, what causes spin and how is it controlled? All right. So what causes spin? Spin is caused by, one, you need speed for spin. You need to have speed. If you imagine, if I'm hitting a little, 10-yard shot versus, if I have a wedge here and I'm hitting a 10-yard shot versus a shot where I'm hitting 50 yards or 100 yards, I'm going to get a lot more spin on the 50-yard shot, and I'm going to get a lot more spin on the 100-yard shot. So you need spin or speed first. Next, you need to have friction. Friction comes from basically your ability of your club to grab the golf ball. You need to have that friction. So if your face is dirty, that's going to reduce the friction. The golf ball is going to reduce. If you're not playing, typically you want to have a soft golf ball, like a tour, like a urethane cover golf ball, which is going to be softer. It's going to allow you to get more friction on the golf ball. That's a big part of getting spin, especially with wedges. You need to have these grooves clean, right? We need to have if any water gets on the face, moisture at all, it needs to be able to be channeled away from the surface that's contacting the golf ball. If any grass gets between the face and the ball, you're going to reduce the amount of spin. All right. So friction is a big part of it. And then we need to have the correct spin loft. So what spin loft is, just to kind of show you, if you imagine this is my loft of my club, all right? If I grab this other, spin loft is the difference between the loft of my club and the direction my club head is moving into the golf ball. Your angle of attack, right? So if my club is working down like this, this is the direction it's moving, and then my loft is going there, that's going to be my spin loft number. So there's something called spin loft mountain. That's where you can actually get too much difference between your and your angle of attack. And what will end up happening is that you won't get the amount of friction that you need. That will reduce it. The ball will end up slipping on the face because it's too much. It's just not enough of compression on it to be able to get that friction and grab it. So you have to be able to find that tipping point of where to get the max amount of speed. You want to be on the tip of that mountain, basically where you're so close to slipping, but you have enough to get that grab on the golf ball. And that can be very different. Typically 50 degrees is typically what you're going to see is your spin loft, is an arbitrary number, but that can go up and down depending on a lot of things. There's a lot of conditions that can make that go up and down. So that's really what you need. You need loft to get the friction, right? We need loft to get the friction. We need clean face to get the friction. We need a good ball to get the friction, and we need speed to get that spin along with the friction, but not too much of a difference between your loft and your attack angle so that the ball slips on the face. That's how you get spin. And how you control it is by altering those numbers. If you hear on TV all the time about tour players, how they want to control the spin, right? They don't want to get too much spin because it may end up spinning off the green. If they have kind of a soft green, or if it's a pitched green or something like that, you could easily get it by the hole and then it'll spin off of the green completely, especially with the greens. The greens that they play are typically fast. So once that ball, it's going to spin back more than what you may see at your typical, municipal course, public course or something like that. So they control it by using less loft, right? That's one way that they control it. They control it by, having using the bounce a little bit more. Instead of getting ball first contact, they may use the bounce a little bit more and let the ball kind of slide on the turf a little bit and get a little bit of moisture on the face, so that way it doesn't spin as much, right? There's all kinds of ways that you can do it, but mostly they do it with loft. I think they try to hit it clean pretty much all the time, and they'll just use a little bit more loft or less loft. So they'll try to get more shaft lean and try to kind of drive that ball a little bit more so that it comes in lower as well, which is also going to help you control that spin. Because if you have a steeper, if this ball is coming more down steeper and it has a lot of spin, it's going to have more opportunity to spin back. Whereas if a ball is coming in flatter, right, it's going to want to kick forward. So it may have just as much spin, but it's not going to have as much stopping power, essentially, or backup power, because it's coming in flatter. So more loft or de-lofting the face some more, using less loft of a club is a means to control that spin and basically your stopping power by doing that. I see we got one more down here. This will be an easy one, a fast one. Timothy R. asks, should your swing speed be the same for every club? No, it's going to be more with your longer clubs and less with your driver. So your average tour player, more with your driver and less with your shorter clubs. Your average tour player has a club head speed with their driver about 113 miles per hour. Their pitching wedge is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 85, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood, pretty close to that. So you can see the difference there. Your driver, this is a sand wedge, a 56 degree, and this is my old driver. So you can see there's a big difference in the length of the club. So if you imagine if a fan's spinning, the tips of the fan blades are moving a lot faster than the inner portions of the fan blades. that's the same thing as when you're swinging a club. When you're swinging a club, if it's a shorter club, it's the inner portions of the fan blades compared to a driver. So that's why it's not going to be the same. You're going to have the fastest swing speed usually with your driver. If it's not, then you've got probably some club fitting issues that you may want to get worked out. Your driver may be too long, it may be too heavy. You know, if it's a lot less, if it's like the same, because I've worked with people before. I had a buddy of mine who was swinging his 5-wood as fast as his driver. Well, he went and his driver was too short, and he had a very short driver. His driver wasn't much longer than his 5-wood, and his shaft didn't fit him right as well. So he gained about 10 miles per hour just by getting the right driver in his hand. All right, so let's go back up and see if we got any new questions. All right, so Rick B says, I have been recording my swings and drill with my iPhone. Is there a preferred application I should use? I like the V1 Golf app. Some people don't like it, but I like it. I think it's a fine golf app. That's what we use for swing reviews. So if you're interested in doing swing reviews at some point, you may want to get acquainted with the app. But there's other ones out there. I haven't used any of them, but I know V1 Golf works fine. It's completely free for Android, or I've heard people like what's it called? Swing. I can't remember what it's called. Swing something. Let me see if I can find it. There's a bunch of them out there. I mean, I don't think you're going to go wrong with too many of them. So your Swing Analyzer app. Let's see what we find. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Swing Profile. I think that's what it's called. I've heard that one's good. I haven't used it though. But yeah, Swing Analyzer or Swing Profile is one that I've heard is good, but I haven't watched it. I don't know if that's free or not. But yeah, check it out. That's one I've heard is good. But V1 Golf is one that we use here at Top Speed Golf, and you can get it for Android or Apple. Carl C says, as I try to increase my club head speed, does it matter how slow or fast my backswing is? I try to take a slow backswing. So typically, as your downswing speeds up, so as your backswing is going to speed up a little bit as well. It does matter, but you have to find what works the best for you. So I would just experiment with it a little bit. Typically, you know, if your backswing's faster, to maintain that same tempo and rhythm, as you increase your backswing or your downswing speed, your backswing speed is going to go up. So, but if you try to go really, really fast with your backswing, things can get a little bit out of control, you know? So I would just, you know, it teach their own. You know, there's a lot of tour players out there that have fast backswings and some with slow backswings, right? So you just have to find what works best for you. In reality, for speed wise, you want to have a faster backswing is going to help you to swing faster in the downswing, but you also may be out of control a little bit. So like I said, you have to find what works best for you. You got to find that happy medium that works best for you. So Carl C says Coach's Eye works. Yeah, I haven't used that one, but I've heard about that one. I haven't used it though. So Ronnie D says for a draw, hit inside quarter of the ball, right? To cut the ball, you should hit outside of the ball. No, not actually. So actually it would be the other way around. So for a draw, you're going to be, it may feel like that's what's happening. So if you imagine, if I have a ball here, so in order to hit a fade, my face has to be open to my path, right? So for the face to be open, right? The face to be open, it needs to be like this. So I need to be hitting I'm swinging this way, right, out to in, but I need to have my face open to the path. So I would actually be hitting, if I'm hitting a fade, I'm hitting the inside part of the golf ball because I'm hitting, my face is open. So if my face is pointing that way, here, it might be easier to show you on this. So if I have my nail here, I need to hit this. If my face is open, right, I need this face to be open. I need to be hitting the inside part of the ball. And if I need the face to be closed to hit a draw, I'm hitting the outside part of the ball. So what I would try to feel like when you're hitting a fade is I would try to feel like you are swinging in the direction that if I was hitting a draw, I would feel like I'm swinging in the direction that would be the inside part of the ball, but I'm trying to hit the outside part of the ball. That's what I would try to feel like. And then for a fade, I feel like I'm swinging in the direction that would be the outside part of the ball, but I'm trying to hit the inside part of the ball, right? So that would be like this. So I'm swinging, if you're thinking in baseball terms, if I'm hitting a fade, I'm swinging toward third base with the face pointed toward first base. That's what I'm feeling like when I do that. For a draw, I feel like I'm swinging toward first base with the club face pointed toward third base. All right. All right. So Rick B says, thanks. No problem. All right. So not a lot of questions today. Go ahead and get your questions on here. We'll scroll down again and see if we got any other ones. So Dave F, I think we may have answered that one. Finish through. Yeah, we answered that one during the office hours yesterday. So we don't have any questions. So go ahead and get your questions posted, and we'll get them answered on here. In the meantime, I'll just be checking my email. All right, looks like we got a question here. So Edward M says, at this point, I'm not concerned about trying to hit a draw or a fade, just trying to make good ball contact. And that seemed to be working. But when I know that I need to hit a fade, I can. Great. That's thanks for sharing, Edward. If you got any questions, go ahead and let me know. So Saki K says, how to get spin or check on a short chip shot. So it's going to be hard to do that. We talked about a bit earlier. It's going to be hard to do that on a short shot because there's just not a lot of spin to be able to do that. So what you're going to need to do to stop the golf ball is going to be more with loft. So a lot of loft, and with more loft, you can hit it with more speed. But a lot of loft is what you're going to want to do. So open the face, a lot of loft, use like your 60 degree, whatever your highest lofted wedge is if you're needing it to stop. And even open the face a little bit, put it a little bit forward in your stance. So if you're like this, a little bit forward in your stance, and you need to make perfect contact with that golf ball. If you get any water, if you have anything on the face, you have to make ball first contact. You can't hit any of the ground. If you do, it's not going to spin as much, right? So we need to get that friction on the golf ball. So a lot of loft, open face, ball a little bit forward in the stance. That's going to allow you to get that ball up in the air. And you also may want to hit it on the toe a little bit. If you hit it on the toe a little bit, that deadens the strike, and it allows the ball to kind of stick on the face a little bit more to maybe give you a little bit more spin. All right. And you also may want to cut across it a little bit, which will also allow you to swing a little bit harder. So basically you're taking the efficiency of your strike out, but you're not trying to hit it as far as possible. You're trying to hit a short shot with a lot of spin. So swinging across the ball, out to in, toe strike, open face, ball a little bit forward in the stance, get that ball getting up in the air, ball first contact. You have to make ball first contact. It's not an easy shot. I mean, if you're really needing it to check right away, it's not going to be an easy shot. But this is it's a high degree of difficulty shot. It's definitely something you're going to want to practice. And then if you're in the rough, basically no chance, because there's no way. Your lie is going to be very dependent on whether you can do this shot. So if you got a bad lie where there's just no way you're going to be able to make ball first contact, it's just not going to spin very much. All right. So your only other option is to really flop it. And if you have a bad lie where the ball is really down in the grass, it's going to be a super high degree of difficulty shot. So, but that's basically what it comes down to. Cutting across it, toe strike, as much loft as you can get. Open face and trying to get that ball to kind of pop up in the air, ball first contact, and that will allow it to come down with a steep angle, and then also have a little bit of spin on it. But they're high degree of difficulty shots. You just gotta go practice them. So Mike L says, do the pros ever change golf balls off the tee during a round for various performances? No, I mean, they'll change golf balls if there's a cut in the ball or something like that. But you can't switch golf balls on certain holes just for fun. If you're switching golf balls, it has to be because the golf ball is defective in some sort of way. So if it's got a cut in it, it's got scuffed up or something like that, that's a means to change golf balls. And a lot of times they'll do that on a few times around, typically, I would say. But for the most part, you can't unless the ball becomes defective. So Tim C says, I am right-handed and reverted to left hand below right, backhanded for chipping because of my tendency to scoop under pressure. It seems with the method there is much less tendency to scoop. I have also started using the exact chipper with good results, especially with left hand below right. Do you see any downside of method? I think he's saying cack-handed, but backhanded. No, it's completely fine. And yeah, you can chip backhanded. There's a really good player. He's like an All-American player. I can't remember what university he goes to. His entire swing is backhanded. He takes a full swing completely backhanded and has a fantastic golf swing. It's unorthodox. I would think that it's difficult, but especially in a shorter swing situation, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It just takes some time and some feel to get used to it. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So Douglas S says, what drills do you suggest to keep left wrist flat bowed at impact? The move. I'd work through the move course. So the move course, especially the tennis racket drill in the move course. So in the tennis racket drill in the move course, you are you grab a tennis racket. You don't have to use a tennis racket. It's just easier to visualize with the tennis racket. So the big reason why we use a tennis racket for this drill is when you're looking at the club face, when it gets out in space, it's a little bit hard to see where it's pointing. So it's a little bit easier to see with this. So I can tell the face is pointing up to the sky and that's pointing toward you. So when we're doing the tennis racket drill, we're going up to the top, and then in transition, we're getting this shaft to shallow out, and we're getting this face to square earlier. So we want this string pointing up to the sky as we're turning it more toward the camera. And to do that from this angle, that's going to be lead wrist bowing and trail wrist going into extension like that. So that would look like this, right? That's what I'm doing as I'm coming down. So I'm going like this. I'm getting this really shallowed out, and I'm getting this to where it's pointing more toward the camera as I'm coming down. And I'm going to impact, and then I'm going into the full finish. The other cool part about using the tennis racket is you can do lots of reps at home. You're not going to too much, most likely, if you do this. So tennis racket drill is what I'd recommend from the move course. To get to the move course, all you got to do is click the house icon at the top of the page. That's going to take you to the home page. If you go to on the home page, if you scroll down, you'll see a list of all the courses on the website, and you'll see the move course. Click the move, then go to 1.3. You can also search tennis racket drill. We have lots of great videos on the website, and some of them can be a little bit hard to find because they're not in any of the system or the course videos. They're vault videos. And if you're ever looking for anything on a specific subject, use the search engine on the website. It works really, really well. So you can also search the word tennis racket and find this video. So go to the top right-hand corner of the page if you're on like a normal laptop. If you're on like the normal laptop, desktop, computer, website, it's going to be in the upper right-hand corner. If you're on a mobile device, if you click the icon that's in the upper right-hand corner, it's 3 horizontal lines. If you select that, that'll expand a menu. If you scroll down to the bottom of that menu, you'll find the search box right there. You can search anything right there. So I highly recommend you use that. Great tool on the website. All right, so Carl C says a question about head movement up to the ball. Impact 1, head stays still. 2, head moves toward target. 3, head moves away from target. 4, head moves up. 5, head moves down. 6, head moves towards ball. 7, head moves away from ball. Which movements are okay? Which are no-nos? I wouldn't get too. The main thing is about your spine angles. The most important thing is to have your spine angles. So typically, if you have a stable spine, if you were to draw at a dress, have 2 lines right down your torso here, you'd want that to be those 2 lines of your torso to be about 6 to 8 degrees angled away. As you go up to the top of the swing, you want to remain in that. So if you move a little bit this way, that's fine, as long as you're still within that. If you get outside of that, that's an indication that your spine is not stable. You're sliding your spine. You're probably having some issues, probably sliding your hips and not opening and things like that. So that's a big one. And then as you come down into contact, we want that to be moved a little bit forward and then a little bit more angled away as you're coming in. And then in the full finish, you'll post up after that. So I wouldn't be too concerned with the exact head movement. The head is not moving way all over the place, but it does have some movement. I'll tell you, basically, I'll break down the typical tour player. What you're going to see is as they start the backswing, sometimes you will see their head go up just a little bit initially as they're basically as they're loading up in their trail foot and they're unweighting that lead foot. Sometimes you'll see they'll go up just a little bit, especially with driver, because they're trying to get higher a little bit so that they can go down lower, so they can get more pressure into the ground when they start. But typically with an iron or something like that, you're going to see that they don't really move very much up or off the ball. But every now and then you'll see them move, maybe an inch off the ball and maybe an inch or 2 up, which is fine in the very, very beginning of the backswing. As they're getting up to the top, what you're going to see is they're going to start lowering their head. So their head's going to start lowering. And then as they start to really reach the top, you may even see their head start to move down and forward a little bit. All right. And then as they start the downswing, they will move even further down and more forward. So now they're moving further down and more forward, and then they come into contact. Now, some players, as they come into contact, will come up a little bit. And those are the players that go down a lot. So Rory McIlroy, he gets here and he really sits down. And then he gets in here and starts to stand up just a little bit, right? He's still way, way down here, but he's standing up just a little tiny bit. That's what you'll see. And then sometimes you'll see tour players where their head will not come up at all. If you look at Dustin Johnson, he gets the impact. His head does not move basically until his hands are way up here. Some tour players you'll see in the straight line release, they'll start to come up. So there's lots of head movement out there. The main thing is that your stable fluid spine is really the most important thing. That's really the most important thing. So if that is stable, you're in good shape. Beyond that, I'd be getting the piece of the top speed golf system correct, because I can have my head right here, but then be chicken winging, right? I can have my head up here and flip the club, right? You can have your head in a certain place, but that doesn't mean that the club is going to do what you need it to do. So the head is not the most important thing. Having the spine angles is in the right positions is the most important thing. And that's what I would really be worried about for sure. The biggest issue I see with people with head movement is they try to keep their head down all the way through the swing, and they're so focused on keeping that head down that they don't let their body rotate. Now, it's okay to keep the head down through impact. You're going to see a lot of tour players that are like this, but we got to let our body rotate underneath it as we're coming through. We can't let the body stop because we're keeping our head down, and that's going to cause an early release and things like that. So Douglas S. says, drills to prevent hips from stalling at impact. Really depends on why your hips are stalling. There's lots of reasons why it could be, but the main reason I see is, one, because we're coming down steep, right? So if I'm coming down steep, meaning I'm coming down, this club is in a vertical position. Well, if I'm in this kind of position like this, my options are to either swing over the top like this or stick this club in the ground way behind the golf ball. Or what most people do, which is they will stand up, which raises the handle and drops the club back onto plane. And now I can hit it. Now I can hit the ball. I can hit a functional shot, although I'm going to hit it with a lot of loft because I've stood up, I have to flip the club, right? So that's one of the biggest reasons why, because when you stand up, you lose the flex out of your legs and you can't rotate. So if you're like this with your legs dead straight, you're not going to be able to rotate as much as if you're like this. If I'm like this, I can rotate like crazy, but if I'm like this, I can't rotate as much. So that's why, because you've had to stand up, you're not going to be able to rotate the hips. Now, you may have the club perfectly shallowed out, and it looks great right here, but you square up the face by throwing the club at the golf ball, by releasing the club early. Releasing the club early is a means to square up the face, is a means to basically close the face. This closes the face right here. So if this is the way that you square the face and the way that you close it, you have to make room for that club. Otherwise, if I try to release that club early and I'm down here and I'm rotating, I'm just going to stick that club right in the ground. So if I do this, I have to stand up and again lose the flex out of my legs to make room for that club. Otherwise, I'm going to stick it in the ground. So that's the other part of it, is you want to get the face square earlier in the swing by squaring up that face in the transition, like we talked about in the move. So the move is really what covers the two biggest reasons why I see people stall out the hips and not open up the body, is because they have to lose the flex out of their legs because they're either coming down steep and they have to stand up to get it back on plane, or they might be have the club nice and shallowed out, but they have to stand up to make room for the early release, because that's how you square up the face. So if you have that club shallowed out and the face square earlier in the swing, which is what the move is, then you can stay in your posture, and you have the face already square. You can stay in your posture and just rotate into contact with forward shaft lean and have the body opening up as you want it to. So the move course is going to be where you want to go to work on drills to get the hips open. So most likely, because those are the two biggest reasons I see. Without seeing your, it's hard to know for sure. You could be throwing the club right away from the top. So maybe you're at the top of the swing and you just go like that in the very, very beginning. The club's already releasing. You have to make room for it, and there's no chance. So lag might be another piece, right, that you may need to work on to get better. So I would basically, those are probably the three pieces. To get to the move course, click the house icon. That's going to take you to the home page. Scroll down the home page, click the move. And also, I think it'll be a little bit above that. You'll see the top speed lag course. You just got to look at your swing. If you look at your swing and you see the clubs like this, then you need to go to the move. If you look at your swing and you see the club is shallowed out, you're getting lag. That all looks great. Your club shallowed out, you're getting lag, but you just stand up and make room for the club. You're going to want to work on either the straight line release course and or the move course. And if you see right away that this club is doing this, right, from the very, very start of the swing, then you're going to want to work on the top speed lag course. So James M says, Q, should you square the face when you have a chip? It depends. If you're hitting just like a normal chip shot where you're trying to get the ball rolling and you're hitting like an 8-iron or something like that, yeah, that's completely fine to have the face square. You're going to have the toe a little bit down a little bit, and you're going to get the ball a little bit more on the toe, a little bit toward the toe, because you're going to have this club a little bit more upright. All right, so you have the club like this, and then it's just kind of, it's almost a putting stroke a little bit, but you're moving your body, right? So a putting stroke is all shoulders. This kind of stroke for chipping, I don't like to use all shoulders. I like to get for it to be a pivot, because all shoulders can only work in about this much space, and that's typically what you're putting. Putting, you're not taking it up here, right? Putting, you're only taking it at max, probably about this far, right? So if you're putting and you're going further than that, you should get the knees a little bit involved. Otherwise, it's going to be more difficult. So, but with a chip, because it's almost always going to be a little bit longer than this, I always just recommend using a pivot of the hips. So it's going to be more, the arms are going to stay pretty straight, not a lot of hinge in the wrist at all. It's just going to be you're keeping your weight forward, pivot of the hips, and going through just like that. Pivot of the knees and of the hips. Get those knees moving around. And that's typically the best way to do it. Hit it just slightly off the toe. And the reason why you want to do that is because on a chip, because you're standing close, because you're choked up, usually kind of standing like that, that gets the toe down a little bit. So when the toe's down a little bit, that raises the sweet spot. So it's going to be easier to get that if you to hit it solid, to hit it good, if you hit it a little bit toward the toe. All right. So that's what I would recommend doing for chips. If you're hitting a wedge and you're trying to get something with a pitch, it's a pitch type shot, then yeah, I recommend basically opening the face almost always, at least a little bit to expose the bounce, give you a little bit more margin for error. But other than that, if it's just a chip shot, I just set up to it square. You can open up the face if you want to, but it's not necessary. So Patrick Y says, hi Q, I'm hitting my 100-yard wedges left of the target. Feels like I am closing the club face by turning my wrists. Do you suggest I can straighten my wedges by abbreviating the follow through like Zach Johnson? Is his club face facing the sky at the end of the follow through? Kate, your thoughts? Yeah, you could. I would just try to feel like your face is more. If you're pulling shots, just like we talked about earlier, it means your path is left and direction. So I would just try to feel like you're hitting a push. I just try to feel like it out to the right. That'd be the easiest fix. And a lot of times when you do that, you will have more of an abbreviated finish. But abbreviated finish isn't going to make you stop pulling it necessarily. What's going to stop you from pulling it is swinging more into out with your face in that direction, and that can result in a more abbreviated finish. But that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. You may swing all the way through into the full finish if you do that. All right, so go ahead and keep your questions coming. We got about 8 minutes or so left. In the meantime, I will be checking my email while you guys are getting a question. All right, so we got a question. Robert H says, is there an advantage to using the interlock grip as opposed to a five finger grip? I haven't heard of that one. No, it's personal preference. You can use I think you might mean 10-finger grip. You can use a 10-finger grip, which would basically be kind of like a baseball grip, except you have your thumbs kind of working down the shaft. Baseball grip would be your thumbs are kind of wrapped around like that. So I don't like to call it a baseball grip. But yeah, 10-finger grip would be where all your fingers are contacting the grip, right? And it's the same as a baseball grip, whereas you're using this. So the advantage, I shouldn't say this. So there is some advantage to it. So the advantage is that you have more coverage on the club. It takes less strength to control it. So if you're someone, if you have arthritis in your hands or something like that, women and children, this grip can be beneficial as well because, like I said, typically, when you have arthritis, you're losing a little bit of strength. Women don't typically have as much strength as men to be able to control the club, and children as well. So a lot of times they can benefit from this. But there's tour players out there. Scott Piercy, he's a fantastic ball striker. Uses a 10-finger grip. All right, so you can play great golf. I know Clay told me he played with someone in college who used a 10-finger grip, and he is a great player. So there's lots of, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just typically for those that have a little bit less strength. And then interlock versus overlap. I mean, that's really, it's personal preference. But the reason why you would want to use either of them is because it gives you a little bit, basically it lets your hands kind of work as one a little bit more. Instead of feeling like your hands are kind of spreading apart, helps your hands kind of work as one. So that's the advantage to it. But the disadvantage is that you're not going to be able to put as much force necessarily into this handle as you could with maybe a 10-finger grip. So something to try if you're someone who's looking for distance for sure. You can try a 10-finger grip and see if that helps you to swing a little bit harder. I know with a 10-finger grip, I can swing a couple miles per hour faster. So if you're looking for a couple extra miles per hour, I mean, hey, that's 5 yards basically. It could get you a little bit more. 4 miles per hour extra is 10 yards. So I think that'd be worth it if you're able to hit the ball. Well, it's probably going to be uncomfortable at first, but trust me, once you start hitting the ball well and controlling it, you'll get rid of that discomfort pretty quick. But yeah, I think a 5-finger grip, that'd be pretty tough. That'd just be one hand only, right? So you can, I mean, there's people that play, the people that have, like war veterans that have, amputee and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of that where people are playing one-handed for sure, and they don't do too bad. But I would not recommend it if you're able to just do, if you have the means to be able to use both hands, all 10 fingers. So James N says, have a nice lunch and a nice day. Thanks, James. You too, buddy. So we got a few minutes here. If anybody has any last minute questions, we'll go ahead and answer them. If not, we'll wrap her up. Robbie says, thank you. No problem. Glad I could help. Another couple minutes here, and then we'll wrap it up. One more minute here. All right, so if we don't have any more questions for today, thank you everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow. Thursday is tomorrow, I believe. So Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So everybody have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you all next time. Thanks.